In the mid-1980s, painter Joe Coleman exploded onto the New York art scene. Literally. From performance art and underground comics, Joe Coleman has emerged as this generation's answer to Salvador Dali, mixing a flair for theatrics with the technique that borders on the obsessive. Wielding his brush like a scalpel, Coleman performs autopsies on the psyches of serial killers, historical figures, and Joe's favorite subject, himself.
You have to make friends with the enemy. You have to digest a certain amount of the dark side in order to survive. You can look at my paintings from a distance, you have a good idea of like a graphic scene, but then as you get closer, you see more, and closer, and you see more and more. It's like worlds within worlds within worlds.
Coleman works with a single horsehair brush, creating details that are nearly microscopic.
I've had collectors that have had paintings for years, and all of a sudden, one day I'll get a call and they'll say, "Joe, I just discovered this thing I never saw in the painting. I've been looking at it every day." That's kind of fun for me to hear it, because it's all there if you're willing to look. I'm only giving you hints on how to look. And the more that you put into it, the more that you're going to get out of it, in the same way that I'm making the painting. The only thing that I'm concerned about is the detail, because the detail leads me to the soul. Step right up. Hurry, hurry, hurry.
Step inside Joe's gallery of the weird and unusual, a collection he calls the Auditorium.
The auditorium consists of both saints and sinners. We have here a lock of someone's hair. It's Charlie Manson. This is a reliquary that contains a piece of Jesus Christ. Supposedly it's the bone marrow. So if we take this, we take Charlie Manson's lock of hair, we put them together, we have a Cupid doll. We can clone the perfect deity. That's St. Agnes. St. Agnes refused to have sex with the Roman soldiers, and they raped and killed her. Supposedly, underneath the wax is the real saint. If you look closely at her hands, you'll see that they contain real human bone. Her hair is real human hair. It's got real human teeth.
Where do you purchase the remains of St. Agnes?
Came with the apartment. Now you can't buy this stuff. It has to do with a passion about acquiring it. That's how it starts. Eventually it gets to the point where the stuff comes to you. A lot of these things want to be here whether I want them to be here or not, because they know that they're going to be honored here. It's almost like they're telling each other there's a party at Joe's house and they have to come here in order to be respected. Here's Johnny Cash with these Siamese twins, one of my favorite musicians. And here's my favorite actress, Jane Mansfield, with an autograph that says, "With love to my favorite artist, Jane." And here's Whitney and I always like to be able to have a place to look at Whitney at.
Every Gomez needs his Morticia, and Coleman's found his in photographer Whitney Ward.
When my dad first met you, he said, "Oh my God, I didn't know there were two of you in the world."
Right.
The story of their courtship is told in the painting, Love Song.
I mean, it's called Love Song because that's what it is. It's a love song in paint. It has our first date, in this bar, and we were sucking on each other's fingers, and that was like one of the first images that appeared in the painting.
It really took a while to unfold. It didn't start as a portrait of us. He didn't say one day, "Oh, I'm doing a portrait of us," and, kind of developed really naturally like our relationship did.
Inspired by the museums of Venice, Joe added a few personal touches to each corner of the painting.
One of them contains a cyst that I removed from my own neck, mixed with Whitney's blood. Each reliquary contains different body parts of us that are commingled. And then it's mounted on a bed sheet that we fucked on. So it has, you know, so many, like, both, you know, magical and narrative elements in it. Junior's my adopted son, and experience of getting Junior.
Proudest day of your life.
Yeah, well, it was a very proud day. I was in Coney Island, and I was walking past a sideshow, and all of a sudden I heard somewhere in the background, "Hey, Joe!" And I was like, well, there's, you know, probably 5,000 people named Joe in Coney Island, yeah, so I just kept walking. Then I hear, "Hey, Joe Coleman!" I'm like, what? So I turn around, and I see this character by one of the banners, and he's going, "Hey, Joe, you want to buy a pickled punk?" It's like, what? So I walk over to the guy. I knew what a pickled punk was, because that's old carny slang for a baby in a jar, usually deformed. It sounded really interesting.
Ooh.
So he brings me behind the canvas banner and brings me into this little trailer, goes behind a curtain, and pulls out this little darling. And immediately, you know, I fell in love with him. I just gave him what he asked for and took little Junior home on the subway.
Junior has quite a photo album going on, too. He has pictures taken with every single one of his friends that comes over.
There's so much fear about the end of the world. And actually, the world ends when I die. And so the book of Revelations, to me, is actually about my death. And I had to interpret, you know, the end of my days and how I would deal with that. And it actually became one of the only paintings that I ever made that had a happy ending.
Everybody's smiling through the apocalypse, aren't they?
Well, because it's actually the day that the guilty are punished and that our family is rewarded for all their good deeds.
Joe asked for photographs of all my enemies, and I said, well, I can only really think of one or two people I'd want to send to hell. And he goes, think harder.
Whitney and I ride the beast. He's kind of like a lawnmower, like chopping up all of our enemies. And we are leaving behind the world in flames. Whitney has the scales, and I have the Book of Revelations open to this very image in the Book of Revelations. Then I took the entire Book of Revelations in miniature, which was blessed by a Catholic priest, and I mounted it all along the frame, and I took out my blood and Whitney's blood with a syringe and stained all the pages from the Book of Revelations around the painting. And that's the force field that holds it all in.